Ladies and gentlemen, Raila Odinga has lost his bid of becoming the next chair of the African Union Commission. What next for Raila Odinga? Is Raila Odinga now going to come back to Kenya to contest for the presidency in 2027 after losing in his bid? Or is Raila Odinga going to persuade his supporters to rally around William Ruto because William Ruto stood with him? Or is Raila Odinga going to finally exit the political scene? What next for Raila Odinga? We are coming with that analysis later. But for now, I want us to figure out why Raila Odinga lost. Because clearly something went wrong last minute. If you followed the voting pattern, it was clear that Raila Odinga lost as a result of SADC members. What made the SADC members to dump Raila Odinga last minute? Because I remember the other day when Mohiza Kitui explained that the SADC countries had made a decision to support the Djibouti candidate.
The dynamics of electing leadership for Africa Union are not always in sync with good campaigning. That's why there's only been one non-Muslim leader of Africa Union, the lady from South Africa. You can't say that Francophone Africa campaign is better. The other dynamics are beyond the energies and resourcing of campaigns by the countries sponsoring candidates.
What's at play?
There are many different things. One, I've been told, I've promised otherwise, but traditionally, and I've seen this in the UN system where I worked for 8 years, Francophone Africa votes as a bloc when there's an election. And it's extremely difficult normally for Francophone Africa to vote as a bloc for a non-Francophone speaker if and when there is a Francophone speaker, French speaker among the candidates.
Right.
That's an important dynamic. Number two, there's a very large constituency of Muslim states or Muslim majority states on this continent. They did not take it very kindly when the president of Kenya rushed to stand behind Israel on its unjustifiable genocide in Gaza. That doesn't sit well. That means that the Ruto does not become an asset if you're going to look for votes in Arabic Muslim countries in Africa.
There's more liability in that case.
Yes. And the main alternative to Raila is a Muslim who speaks French.
Yeah.
So those are important considerations. Number three, the Anglophone vote has been split. You remember SADC, which has a candidate from Madagascar, has apparently thrown its weight behind the candidate from Djibouti. And when Ramaphosa makes that statement, he's speaking for more than South Africa. So there are so many dynamics. To roll back these gains by the Djibouti candidate is a tall order. I know that Baba has done his best. I don't know how well it will work.
But most Kenyans never believed that that was going to happen. Because importantly, Raila Odinga is also close to most of the presidents from the SADC states. What really transpired? Earlier in the day, and this was a serious signal, President Mahmoud Abbas of Palestine addressed the African Union member states. Mark that. And in his address, he seriously condemned what he termed Israel genocide, what he called colonization, and the suffering of the people of the Palestine. Let us go back to William Ruto. What is William Ruto's position on Israel and Palestine? William Ruto made some mistake and supported Israel against Palestine. And now here, there was the president of Palestine issuing that kind of an address in the presence of William Ruto. So for me, if you were to ask me, it was by design, and that address was actually meant to persuade the Muslim community to rally around one of their own. It was also intended to expose Kenya under the leadership of William Ruto. Because when they talk of Israel genocide, William Ruto stood with Israel. When we talk of colonization, William Ruto was the face of America and the suffering of the people there. When you talk of the suffering of the people of the Palestine, you know how that's actually emotional amongst the Muslim countries. But Raila Odinga ended up losing. He won the first round, he won the second round. And on the third round, the Djibouti candidate withdrew. If you looked at the voting there, only one country then went ahead and voted for Raila Odinga. I think in the second round, another country which had abstained voted for Raila Odinga. So Raila Odinga's vote got stuck at 22 because in the first round, Raila got 20. So what do you think happened? What went wrong? I'm still doing my analysis on why the SADC member states decided to dump Raila Odinga. But in general, in my view, number one, Raila Odinga's campaign team did not have serious diplomats. The other day I was talking to someone, he told me, Lee, this Raila campaign, it doesn't have really the diplomats. Then I asked him about Elkanah Odembo, who was a member of that team. And of course, there's also that guy, a solid guy. He told me those guys are not running the show. And that the show were being run by two people. Three. The PS for Foreign Affairs, Songoi, Makao Mutua, and Caroline Karugu. The three. But they don't have diplomatic experience. My expectation was that this Raila Odinga team ought to have picked the best, including some from other countries. I don't want to blame them, but I think that was a big mistake. The second mistake I saw yesterday, Kenyans started landing in Ethiopia with a lot of noise. Everybody landed in Ethiopia. The truth is, even myself, I'd actually planned to go to Ethiopia. But I said, was there a need really? So when those guys landed, and then there were some countries or states which were not very sure what happened. I listened to even someone like Matsanga talking, and I was like, what's this guy saying? So the noise by Kenyans, almost all MPs went to Addis Ababa. Everybody who supports Raila Odinga, including the likes of Gaucho, the likes of Jaro Soja, so you're wondering, what were they going to do there? So that noise scared some of these people. Number three, why Raila Odinga lost is the DRC war. This is basically what persuaded the SADC bloc not to support Raila Odinga. I'm gathering more information on this. I'm really interested in understanding why the SADC members decided to dump Raila Odinga at last minute. Because we all know that South Africa ought to have voted for Raila Odinga. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, one of the longest serving presidents in Africa, was not in Addis Ababa. Of course, the truth is, even in his absence, Uganda voted. But his presence there would have helped in persuading 1, 2, 3 people. Paul Kagame was absent. He supported Raila Odinga, maybe because of this DRC war. I'm not so sure whether Burundi voted for Kenya. I'm not so sure. Yeah? So that DRC war, and when those South African soldiers were eliminated, I think the SADC states were not impressed. And who has been the face of trying to find solution? Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta is being frustrated in that peace initiative according to Uhuru Kenyatta himself, by William Ruto. Uhuru Kenyatta was in Ethiopia. Was he campaigning Baba, or was he persuading these people to vote for Raila? I don't know. But that DRC war is one of the reasons why Raila Odinga lost. Number four, there's always the religious or religion factor, which is huge. We have the Muslim states, Christian states. If you look at the voting pattern and the invitation of President Mahmoud Abbas to address the African Union, something. So the intention is that if the entire West Africa who are Muslims, after listening to the address by Abbas, if they decided just after that to rally around their own, because the Djibouti candidate is a Muslim, there was no way Raila Odinga was going to win. The brotherhood. And again, you attribute this to William Ruto's blunder. William Ruto's blunder. I'm not so sure, because I've tried to follow when Zuma's wife won. The former chairman, the Gabon, was it the Gabon, the pink guy, the Chinese kind of man there? You see, that guy, he won first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth, but he never reached the threshold. But when they went now for, because if you don't reach the threshold, remember Baba dropped off. If you don't meet the threshold, then what happens is that another election is called. When that election was called, the US now stamped the authority. I'm sure the US were not impressed by the presence of Abbas, but it was late. So religious factors, but importantly is the Francophone and Anglophone factor. We have 21 countries Anglophone, and we have 18 countries Anglophone. So Francophone begins with a head start of 21. So which means this guy had that head start. Now most of these Francophone, they also side with the Muslim states, which speaks Arabic. Ladies and gentlemen, we can say what you want, but the odds were not really for Raila Odinga and the East African community. So it required the SADC. So you lose the SADC, then we have the Francophone. Importantly, is the regional interest were also at play. You see, West Africa are always united because of religion and other factor. Then we have the North, which always tends to go with the West. Raila Odinga comes from East Africa, which is okay. Comes from East African community. And because Raila Odinga comes from East African community, he was really banking on the SADC. Now, the moment SADC issued that letter yesterday, so I think they didn't really do serious homework. And lastly, something which people don't want to talk about. Raila Odinga's age also worked against him. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, this is Makwiny. Bye-bye.